You know, in our digital world, there's this constant, invisible battle being fought every single second, and it's all for our most valuable asset, our information. It's this silent, ongoing duel between attackers and defenders. So let's pull back the curtain and see what that fight really looks like.
So before we jump into all the wild tactics and fancy technology, let's just stop and ask the most fundamental question. What are we even fighting for? I mean, it's way more than just passwords or credit card numbers. It's about the fundamental nature of our data itself.
And the answer to that question really boils down to what the pros call the crown jewels of cybersecurity, the CIA triad. No, not that CIA. This stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is all about keeping secrets secret. Integrity means making sure your data hasn't been messed with. And availability means you can actually get to your stuff when you need it. Pretty much every security measure in existence is designed to protect one of these three things.
Okay, so protecting those three principles. Well, it isn't about just sitting back and waiting for an attack. A good defense is all about having a solid plan from the get-go. And that starts with defining the rules of engagement.
You know, before a single dollar is spent on fancy security software, every organization has to create its battle plan. And that plan comes in the form of security policies. Just think of it like an official rule book. It tells everyone, from the CEO all the way down, what their job is, what the standards are, and why it all matters. It is the absolute foundation for the entire defense.
So, how do you actually use that rulebook? Well, it's done through a really clear strategic process. First, you figure out what you have, what could possibly go wrong, and where you're weak. Then, you assess the damage. How likely is an attack, and how bad would it be? From there, you decide what to do. Are you going to avoid the risk, try to reduce it, maybe transfer it with insurance, or just accept it? And the key part? This isn't a one-and-done deal. It's a cycle. You have to keep monitoring, always.
Now, the good news is, organizations don't have to invent this whole process from scratch. There are major playbooks they can follow. The two big ones you'll hear about are ISO 27005, which is this very formal international standard that loves documentation, and the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. That one's more of a practical, function-based model that's super popular in the US. Both get you to the same place, a smart, structured way to manage risk.
All right, we've laid out our defensive strategy. Now let's flip the script. It's time to meet the opposition and take a peek inside the attacker's playbook. Generally, they have two main lines of attack. Go after the people or go after the machines. The first, and let's be honest, often the most effective method is social engineering. This has nothing to do with writing clever code and everything to do with psychology. It's all about manipulating people because we are often the weakest link in any security chain and tricking us into giving up information or access on our own.
A classic social engineering tactic is pretexting. This is where the attacker creates a totally believable but fake story, a pretext, just to earn your trust. You know that urgent call you get that's supposedly from your bank's fraud department? That is a perfect example. They build a whole fake scenario just long enough to get what they're after.
Then there's baiting. This one plays on our natural curiosity or our love of getting something for free. An attacker might leave a USB drive labeled confidential salaries in the office parking lot, or offer a free download of a movie that's still in theaters. The bait looks tempting, but it's loaded with something nasty.
Impersonation is, well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. The attacker just pretends to be someone you trust. Maybe it's an email from your boss asking you to do something unusual, or a call from IT support saying they need to remotely access your computer. It completely relies on our built-in trust of authority. And of course, we have to talk about phishing. This is the one we have all seen a million times in our inboxes. Those fake emails from Netflix or Amazon or your bank, all designed to look just real enough to trick you into clicking a bad link and typing in your password. It's a numbers game for them, but boy, is it effective.
Okay, so that's the human side of the attack. The other half of the playbook is all about malicious software, or malware. This little table breaks down the three classics. A virus is like the flu. It has to attach itself to a legitimate program to spread. A worm is way more independent. It can spread all by itself across a network, no help needed. And a Trojan horse? Well, the name says it all. It disguises itself as something useful to trick you into letting it right through your digital front door.
And beyond those classics, attackers have a whole arsenal of more technical weapons. Things like SQL injection, where they attack a website's database through a simple search box, or cross-site scripting, where they turn a website you trust into a delivery system for their malicious code. And then there's the brute force denial of service attack, which is just a digital flood, sending so much traffic to a server that it just gives up and shuts down for everyone.
Wow, so with all those threats out there, how in the world do we even begin to fight back? Well, it's time to open up the Defender's Toolkit and look at the technologies designed to stop these attacks dead in their tracks.
The very first and most fundamental line of defense is the firewall. And honestly, the security guard analogy is perfect. It stands right at the border of your network, and its only job is to check the ID of every single piece of data trying to get in or out. If you're not on the list, you're not getting in. But not all security guards are created equal. A basic packet filtering firewall is like a bouncer at a club. It just checks your ID and your destination. It's fast, but not super smart. A more advanced stateful inspection firewall is way more intelligent. It actually remembers the conversations that are happening, so it knows if a piece of data is a legitimate part of an ongoing chat.
Okay, so what about protecting our data while it's actually traveling across the internet? That's where encryption comes in. Think of something like PGP as a secure, sealed envelope for your emails, making sure only the right person can read it. IPsec does something similar, but on a deeper level. It creates a secure tunnel for all your internet traffic, and it's actually the core technology that makes most VPNs work.
So if a firewall is the lock on your front door, an intrusion detection system, or IDS, is the burglar alarm inside the house. It sits there on the network, just silently watching everything. If it sees any suspicious activity, anything that might have slipped past the firewall, it sounds the alarm, letting the security team know they need to investigate and fast.
But here's the tough truth. Defenses are not perfect. No matter how good the plan or how expensive the tools, breaches can still happen. An attacker can still get through. So what happens then, in the aftermath?
When a breach happens, panic is your worst enemy. You need a calm, methodical process. And that's where the incident response lifecycle comes in. It's literally the playbook for chaos. It guides a team step by step from identifying there's a problem to containing the damage, kicking the attacker out, getting systems back online, and, maybe most importantly, figuring out what you can learn so it never happens again. At the same time the response team is working, there's a whole other investigation going on. This is computer forensics. It's basically digital detective work, like CSI for your computer. It's a super disciplined process of finding and analyzing digital clues, in log files, on hard drives, anywhere, to piece together exactly what happened. And this brings us to the single most critical point in digital forensics. The evidence is unbelievably fragile. One wrong click, one tiny change, and you could alter a file, making it completely useless in court. That's why investigators are so careful, using techniques like hashing to create a digital fingerprint of the evidence, and maintaining a strict chain of custody, proving nothing has been tampered with.
And that brings us right back to where we started. This digital duel, it's a race. The attackers are always evolving, always creating new weapons and new tactics. So the real question, the one we all have to ask ourselves, is this. Are our defenses, our policies, our tools, our own awareness, are they evolving even faster